Hey everyone, this is Heather with Young and Savvy Genealogist, and today I wanted to give a tour of my DNA cousin match database. I've set up a cousin match database on Microsoft Access. Due to some features that I've added to it since I first started it, I'm really happy with the results that I'm getting, so I kind of wanted to give a tour how it works and why I feel like this is one of the better tools that you can use to analyze your DNA cousin matches. I have matches in here from gedmatch.com, from Ancestry DNA, and from Family Tree DNA. Regardless of which testing company you use or which tools that you use in order to analyze those matches, there will be things in my approach that will be helpful to you and in what you're trying to do with your DNA. So to start off, this is kind of my main screen here, and you can see that I've got a couple of different buttons. And I guess before I get too much into it, I just want to point out, this isn't going to be a tutorial on how to use Access. I may do more of those later, but for now, this is just going to be a tour of how it is that I use the program. I'll use a lot of the terms that are related to Access, but if you're interested in learning how to do that, this isn't what I'm going to be going into today. I have a form that I use for data entry to show you what that looks like. You see that I have lots of different fields here where I can input or display lots of different kinds of information. You'll see that I have a place for the kit number, the person's contact information, their name or their screen name, gender, the most recent common ancestors that we share, whether the matches are paternal or maternal. Those are new checkboxes that I've put in there. So if you see me do tutorials in the past or screenshots from different things that I've created, you'll see that those are new. Lots of different fields for the actual segment data and where the matches are located on the chromosomes. So you'll see that here I have 6 different spaces to put in up to 6 different segments. That's something I can easily add to. That's just the maximum number of segments that I've come across so far because I haven't had any close family tested. And then down here you'll see that I have a notes field where I can type in any type of notes, things I want to keep track of for each cousin match. If I were to display a kit, which I won't do because I don't want to compromise sensitive information for someone, but if I had a kit displayed here and I had matched this kit to other kit numbers on GEDmatch, it used to be that I would put that information in the note field. But part of what I figured out how to do and part of what kind of inspired this broadcast is I wanted to show a better way to go about doing that is kind of unique to Access. So those of you that have used my database tool for Excel, this is something you won't be able to do in Excel as far as I know. This is something that is unique to Microsoft Access. So that's something that I wanted to talk about today. But in terms of how I use this, I'll just input the information. You'll see that I have some save buttons down here. If I make a mistake, I can throw stuff in the garbage, or I can create a new record, which is what is displayed here. This is prepared for if I were to input new information. And then if I want to use this to display information, I also have search fields up here where I can search by email address, I can search by the person's name or screen name, or I can search by their kit number. And this is probably the one I use the most. The email address can be especially helpful if you're using, especially on GEDmatch, if you're trying to look for duplicate kits or other testing companies where this is primarily how you would find someone is by email address. When you input this information, you'll just take your match list, and in the case of GEDmatch, you'll have to do one-to-one analysis. On Family Tree DNA, you would bring this up either on your match list or in the chromosome browser. You look at the segments, you input the identifying information for people, the segment data, and the only testing company you can't do this for is Ancestry DNA because they don't provide segment data. But you just kind of plug this in and crank them out, and you go in whatever order you want to. You can focus on a particular chromosome in the case of Family Tree DNA, or you can just go down your match list as you would in GEDmatch, and you just keep inputting information, and it inputs that information into the table. Once you have a lot of information in your table, I would say probably at least 200 different segment pieces in there. One of the things that will be helpful for you to start to do is to isolate those relationships by chromosome. And I do that in Access with a query. There are a couple different ways that you can do this. And you'll see that I also have the contact and the name information hidden here, which I can do in Access. This is a query, and the query is looking specifically for matches on chromosome 1. So you'll see that all of these are from chromosome 1. And just like in Excel, I can sort these fields. So you'll see that for the starting segment location, so this is the data range for the segment. It starts at this point and ends on this one. I have this sorted by smallest to largest. And then what that does is it lines up all of the segments according to where they start. So you can see that I've got some segments that are likely matches here. These first two, I would test these two to see if they match each other because they cover about the same range. And you just look at these and you see, where do you see some similar ranges happening? This third and fourth match, you can see that they kind of follow a similar range. Same thing with the one that comes after that. And you just scroll down these columns and you see, where am I likely to see some similar ranges? And then from whatever testing company they come from, you want to use those tools in order to see whether or not they match each other or not. And based on how similar the range is, how much of an overlap there is, and whether or not they match each other, you can start to determine whether these are paternal or maternal ancestors that you likely share with these people. So for example, if I was going to do an analysis for the first, let's just say, the third, the fourth, and the fifth kit here, since they follow a really similar range. If I was going to do an analysis on these three right here, and then these two match each other, but then this one doesn't, what does that tell me? That tells me that in all likelihood, two of these are either a paternal or a maternal match, and the one that is left out is the opposite. You want to compare everybody along these similar ranges and start to try to figure that out. Another really important tip to keep in mind is that when you're looking at only three of these, it can be kind of hard to tell sometimes, especially if the overlap isn't as pronounced on these kits. There will be times where you're going to be analyzing stuff that covers a similar range, and you can tell just by looking at the numbers that it may not be because, you know, it's a paternal or a maternal match. It could just be because the numbers are out of range from each other. So as you're looking at this data, you want to keep that in mind. And the larger the sample of data that you're looking at, the better off you're going to be. And chromosome 1, I don't have very many that are in the same range. But even as you scroll down and you look at some of these other ones, like in this 9 range right here, this would be a much better place to try to determine what is maternal and what is paternal, because I just have a larger section of data, and you see that these segments pretty much line up with each other almost exactly, with very little variation here. So that would be a much better place to try to determine what is paternal and what is maternal. But if you want to focus primarily on the larger segments, since those people are more likely to be more closely related to you, you can also isolate those by doing smallest, or from largest to smallest in this column, and it'll present to you the matches that are most closely related to you. Another way that this can help you, looking at it in this view, if you look and you see that there's a missing kit number here, but it's someone who would be in range of someone you'd like to analyze, go back and look to see where this match comes from. In this case, this is most likely family tree DNA that this comes from. I can reach out to that person on family tree DNA and kind of even point out some of this information. You know, I was looking at my matches on chromosome 1 that I've been able to get from a site called GEDmatch. If you've never heard of it before, I was looking at cousins in this range, and I see that you match some of them. If you've already uploaded your results to GEDmatch, let me know and I can do a more detailed analysis. But if not, know that there are these matches on this website that you can get access to. You may not be able to do that just because you don't know about it yet. And this helps me to isolate those opportunities to invite other people to use GEDmatch, so that, you know, this doesn't have to be, you know, an isolated match. This is data that can work together in concert with these other matches. Up until this point, what I've had to do was to pick a kit from, you know, my list of chromosome 1 matches or chromosome 3 or chromosome 6. Look at these things in this range for each other, and then write them down on a list in terms of who matches who, and then compose that together, throw it in the notes field, and then jimmy it together to where the appropriate matches would show up in this notes field. I don't have to do that anymore because I figured out how to use relationships in Access in order to do this for me. So to give you an idea in how this works, I'm going to open up a table so you can see where I input this information. So this is how I display this information, and to give you a tour of how what it looks like so you can see how I put it together. In this column, you see kind of who the core match person is. So let's say that I was looking at matches for this particular kit right here, and I want to see all the different matches that match this person. So I look at the ranges of everyone. I was doing chromosome 3 at the time. And you see how all of these are kind of in a similar range to each other. I matched everyone together who was in this range with everyone else that was in this range. And these are the kits that I have determined all match this one person right here. Ancestry DNA would call this a DNA circle. That's probably a trademark at this point. So I'm going to call this a DNA cluster or DNA group. These are a group of matches that all share common ancestors. And I figured out that in Access, using many-to-many relationships, this is something that you can display in Access. It will do it for you. And all you have to do is go in and tell it which pieces of information are related to each other. And I'll show you kind of how that's constructed and what it looks like putting that information into the table. But just to give you a sense of how I have this organized, I have this sorted by chromosome. And ultimately kind of what that does, it follows a same kind of logical structure so that I can look and see, you know, either based on this or based on these, where the matches are and where the DNA clusters are. I haven't been working on this for very long, but you can see how I have all of this different, all these different groups grouped together. And now at this point, what I can easily do, because I also have the contact information built into this table, even though it's not displaying right now, all I have to do is pull up contact information for all of these different people and say, you know, I've identified all these different cousins that are related to each other. You know, we should compare notes and see if we can't figure out where some of these people are. You know, if you can identify people from different testing companies with their trees based on how they are matched or related to you, once you start to put these people together, you can see and compare data for where are these matches likely coming from. So let me see if I can isolate one of these other matches here. Let's see. So this particular kit number, for example, I happen to know is related to me on my mom's maternal side. So by looking at anything that matches this kit, I can already determine that this is likely where these relationships are. So you can see here, I've got her marked as maternal, but I can easily go through and do one of these other match groups just specifically with this kit number, and anyone who matches this particular kit is likely going to match me on my maternal side. So that's information I want to keep track of in these check boxes. And that's something I've been able to determine comparing lots of these other kits to each other. So for this one in particular, I happen to know is related to me through these two common ancestors, Richard C. Keats and Susan Bennett. That's something that I've been able to do, is to go through and check all of these different boxes. Well, these are the boxes for this one, but to go through all of these different boxes over here and check for every single one of these that it's a maternal match. I've been able to determine that through triangulation, which is basically what this tool is helping me to do. This is how I track and triangulate all of my different matches in my database. And this is something that Access can do for me. In order to set this up, what you want to do, you want to establish a many-to-many relationship. And this is really easy to do. Let me see if I can't open up the relationship so you can see how it works. Basically what I do, this is the DNA matching table where I input all of my information. So when I first showed you this form and you're putting in this information into this form, it's populating into this table right here. This is the table where all of that data lives. I bring up 2 copies of this table into this relationship field, you know, edit relationships, this is where I am. And I've got 2 copies of this same table. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a third table, a relationship table, where I'm going to match up the primary keys on this table. And this is what it's going to display. It's going to take information from this table, put it, and you would put it in one field. And then you take the information from this table and it's going to put it in a second field. And what it's basically doing is recalling information from two different places in the table and putting them together in a third place. This is a particular table where I'm going to tell it, I want you to take information from this table and information from this table, and I want you to put it together. This is the table where I do that. So when you input information into your data entry table for each of your matches, you'll see that it has a field right here for ID number. This is the primary key, and this is a unique piece of information. It's a unique identifier in Access for every single piece of information. So if you think of this as like an Excel table, and you're putting information into the Excel table, that built-in number column all the way to the left, that is the most similar thing to what this is doing right here. In each line of data for Excel, that unique identifying number, the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or 6, it's auto-populating a number. This is kind of what Access will do every time you input a piece of information. It'll add a new ID number here. So what I'm telling it to do is to use those unique ID numbers to put these together. And when I come here, this is what I do. So if I have a kit and this is match number 1391, and I want to match it together with people from with all of these other different unique identifying numbers, this is all you have to do. You take your matches, you match them together with their unique ID numbers, and then ultimately what that looks like is this page right here. And that's how it's putting these together. What I do from here, this is the end result. These are all of the DNA circles. And in terms of what this most readily duplicates, there are in the tier 1. So like if you pay for them to do additional analysis for you, it's about $10 extra a month, or however much you donate to GEDmatch month to month. They have paid tools that will do this analysis for you. That is not something that is feasible in my genealogy budget as of right now. So this is me doing this analysis on my own. And GEDmatch is the only website that really will do that type of analysis for you. For every other type of website that gives you a chromosome browser or that will let you triangulate different kits together, in order to do that, that's basically a one-to-one type of thing. So if I was going to replicate what I'm doing here on Family Tree DNA, this is something that would kind of take me ages in order to be able to do. This is the capacity that Access has to do this type of analysis. And this is the type of analysis that I've never been able to find in another website or in another tool that works as well as this does. This was kind of my tour in how I do my DNA analysis. If you have questions, leave them down in the comments. In terms of, how I get different things to work, I will likely be putting together a playlist of different videos that take you through how to build all of this different kind of stuff. And what I can't find readily available on YouTube, so anything that I can't find in terms of how to build the utility in order to put this together and to make it work, I will make in future videos. So definitely be sure to stay tuned and be sure to hit that like button if you like this tutorial. Subscribe to our channel so you can keep in touch with all the different things that we're working on. Thank you so much for stopping by with us, and we hope to see you again. Bye.